Yo, what's good, YouTube? It is your boy Charles here from the CG Sports Podcast, and I just want to make you guys a quick intro video before we get started with this video. Of course, you guys can see from the title, this is going to be my Week 2 predictions, and I want to let you guys know why you are seeing this video on either Saturday night or early Sunday. Now, I did record this video on Thursday night. This was after the Thursday night game, and the reason I did that is because I gave you guys my Thursday night prediction on the League Crawler podcast. If you guys want to see how that one went, make sure you guys go check out that. But for all these other games, they have not been played yet when I recorded this video, and they should have not been played by the time you are seeing this video, unless you're watching this video late. But nonetheless, I appreciate y'all boys tuning in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. And yeah, that's all I got. Peace. Now, for our first game, it is going to be the Steelers and the Raiders. Now, this is a game where both teams I expect to be coming in 0-1 coming into Week 2. Now, I was actually wrong about both these games. The Steelers ended up taking down the Bills, which was very surprising. And even more surprising, the Raiders were able to take down the Ravens on Monday Night Football. Both these games, super surprising to me. And I guess it really shows you how little you know until you get to see these teams play. But nonetheless, let's get into some injuries here now. So for the Raiders, they actually have Marcus Mariota, who is their backup quarterback. He's on IR with a quad injury. He finally came back from injury this year and played in Week 1, but he took a rough hit, and he's out for who knows how long. And another big loss here is their running back, Josh Jacobs, who is actually out with a toe injury, and he's going to be missing this week. And he's the one guy who's really been a consistent for them on offense. And I think it's definitely going to be tough for them losing them. And for the Steelers, the only major injury they have is Joe Hayden, who's questionable with a groin injury. I expect him to have no problems here. Now, the Steelers have a very solid defense. We know this. And I think that is really going to be the difference maker for this game, not for nothing. Obviously, not having Josh Jacobs is going to smoothen out this offense a lot for the Raiders, and they're going to be very pass-heavy. I couldn't even tell you who the backup running back for the Raiders is at this point, because that's how many touches that Josh Jacobs is getting. So, nonetheless, I think the Steelers' defense will do enough for them to win. I don't think the offense will be very consistent, but it will do enough for them to win this game. So, I think Big Ben throws for a touchdown. Najee Harris rushes in one. And I think the only touchdown for the Raiders comes from Derek Carr. I would assume it will be to Darren Waller just because he's been the big target for them. But nonetheless, I think the Steelers win this one 17-10. And for our next game, it is going to be the Niners and the Eagles. Now, this is a game that I've really been closely contested on whether I think the Eagles are going to play very well offensively and be able to pull off this upset, or if the Niners are just going to be too much on the defensive side of the ball and, kind of lock down the Eagles and just do enough on the offensive side to get a win. And I've been kind of flipping back and forth, but I am going to go with option number 2. The big thing that I think will keep this game closer than most think is the fact that Raheem Mostert is out. He is on IR now, and it's looking like he's going to be out for the rest of the season. So Elijah Mitchell is going to be the guy in San Francisco for what looks to be the rest of the season, unless they choose to sign somebody else. But nonetheless, I have faith that Philadelphia could put up points. I absolutely do. This Eagles defense is solid. It definitely is, but the Niners defense is just on another level. So, like I said, I think the Eagles will put up some points, but I think that the Niners will absolutely take this game. And I'll tell you why. Jimmy G last week threw for 314 yards, which is insane. This is not a guy like Aaron Rodgers. This is not a Patrick Mahomes. This is not a guy who's going to consistently put up a big amount of yards and has a lot of talent to throw the ball to. Obviously, George Kittle is great, but he had no more than 60 yards last week. So it's not like he's playing with this crazy good talent. And for him to throw 315 yards was very, very impressive. Now, obviously, the Eagles have a bit of a better defense than the Lions did last week, but I still believe in the Niners. And this is coming from an Eagles fan. I think the Niners are going to take some. I think the difference is going to be their defense. I think they're going to be able to put some pressure on Jalen Hurts, make him make quick decisions. And I think that secondary and that linebacking core is good enough to play well enough coverage and keep the Eagles struggling offensively. So I think both defenses will really show out here, but I think the Niners will just be a little bit better. I think for the Eagles, the one touchdown will come from Miles Sanders. It will be a rushing touchdown. And for the Niners, I think that Jimmy G will throw for a touchdown, hopefully to George Kittle, because I do have him on my fantasy team. And I think Elijah Mitchell, in his first game as the main guy, will rush in for a touchdown. And I think this final score is going to be 20-13. And for our next game, it is going to be the Cleveland Browns and the Houston Texans. Now, the Browns are coming off of a loss to the Chiefs, but this isn't really a surprise. It's the Kansas City Chiefs. Your odds of beating them obviously are not the highest, but the Houston Texans are a team that I for sure thought we were going to lose week 1. I thought Trevor Lawrence was going to do his thing and he was going to take a win, but that was not the case. I said I wasn't a believer in Tyrod Taylor, and boy, did he prove me wrong. That Texans team played phenomenal on both sides of the ball. I believe they had 3 interceptions on defense. Tyrod Taylor did his thing, and they came out with a big win against a division rival, but I think it will not be the same on Sunday. Now, the Texans are a plus 13 underdog on the point spread, and that is so low of odds, man. If you pick them to win, let's just say, right, for those of you who don't know about Vegas odds, if you put $10 down the Browns to lose and for the Texans to either lose by less than 13 or just win the game, if you bet $10, you come out with 130. That is insane odds. That just shows you how unlikely it is for them to win. And I'm sticking with Vegas on this one. I think the Texans got a good win, but it was against a Jaguars team who obviously has a rookie quarterback and doesn't have the greatest defense. Now, the Browns have a proven quarterback who has shown he can win, as well as a proven defense with one of the best edge rushers in the game and a top 10, maybe top 7, top 6, if you really argue it, cornerback. And all around that offense is a super stack. We spoke about it last week about how the Browns were going to abuse that 2 running back duo, and they did. They were definitely efficient. They barely lost to the Chiefs. I think they'll be coming here with a vengeance, looking to get a win on the board, and I think they will get it against a very easy team. So for the Browns, I think Baker Mayfield throws for 2 touchdowns. Nick Chubb rushes in 1. And for the Texans, I think their only touchdown will come from Tyrod Taylor. It will be a passing touchdown. And the final score for this one is going to be 27-13. And for our next game, it is going to be the Denver Broncos and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars are a team that we just spoke about, saying that they lost a tough game against the Texans, which I expected them to win. It was definitely a tough loss for sure. Tough game for Trevor Lawrence. And his first loss literally in his entire football career. He was like undefeated in high school, undefeated in college, and he finally got his loss in his first NFL game, which is obviously unfortunate. But the Denver Broncos, I'm 0 for 2 on seeing new quarterbacks and saying I'm not a believer. Teddy Bridgewater did his thing against the Giants, and they came out with a big win. So I will not be doubting Teddy Bridgewater this week, and I think he is going to move his team to 2-0, and I'm going to tell you why right now. Now, for the Broncos, obviously, there is a major injury. It is wide receiver Jerry Jeudy. Got hurt in week 1 and is on IR with an ankle injury. But nonetheless, I don't think that's going to change too much. They still have a lot of talent, whether it's Cortland Sutton or KJ Hamler. Those are 2 phenomenal receivers. They got a ton of depth. They still got Noah Fant at tight end. Still got Melvin Gordon at running back. Still a lot of playmakers on this team to make up for what they will lose from not having Jerry Jeudy. But nonetheless, for Jacksonville, I think they will have a better performance, keep a closer game than they did in week 1, but I still think it won't be enough to beat Denver. And I'll tell you why. This defense just looks so good to me. Obviously, they've still got some injuries going on. Bradley Chubb is not healthy yet. Ronald Darby is not healthy yet. But I think this team is healthy enough to where they'll be able to shut down Jacksonville and come out with a big win on Sunday. So I think for this game, the Jaguars, Trevor Lawrence is going to throw for a touchdown, but that will be all from Jacksonville. And for Denver, I think Teddy Bridgewater throws for a touchdown. Melvin Gordon rushes in 1. I think the final score for this one will be 20-10. And for our next game, it is going to be a NFC South divisional matchup between the 1-0 Carolina Panthers and the 1-0 New Orleans Saints. Now, both these teams come up with big wins in week 1. The Panthers game was obviously way less impressive than the Saints. The Panthers beating out the Jets. Sam Darnold, Robbie Anderson, both former Jets, beating out their former team. And they did it with ease. The Jets did show some fight in the last quarter, maybe quarter and a half if you're being lenient. But nonetheless, Panthers come up with a win. And for the Saints, what a performance from Jameis Winston. Oh my goodness. 5 touchdowns and Aaron Rodgers get benched in week 1 was unreal. Now, this game is going to be a big decision for a lot of people, including myself, for who you think is going to win this game. I think there's going to be a big statement for Jameis Winston to prove, was this just a fluke where I played out of my mind, or is this the level that I'm going to be playing at now? And that is what is going to be decided on Sunday. Now, for me, I am not a believer just yet. I'm not a full believer that Jameis Winston can be an elite quarterback in this league, but I do believe that they can beat Carolina. I do believe that 100%. And that's why I'm going to take them to win this game. I think the Panthers will definitely put up a good fight, but I think that Saints are going to edge this one out, and I'll tell you why. I think the defense is going to be the difference maker. The Panthers look great in week 1, but they're playing the Jets. The Jets are not a good team. Both these teams are pretty unproven so far. The Saints kind of had a bit of what you could assume to be a fluke game, and the Panthers beat out the Jets, which really doesn't prove too much. So this is going to be a big statement game, as I said, for both these teams. So we'll see how it goes, but I do think the Saints are going to come out on top here and move to 2-0. Panthers will take their first loss of the season, but once again, this game could be going the other way. We could see Sam Darnold, Christian McCaffrey, Robbie Anderson get into a rhythm, as well as DJ Moore. We could see them get into a rhythm and really start putting things together, and if the defense can get going, they could take this game. But for me, I'm seeing it going New Orleans' way. So I think Jameis Winston comes out, another solid performance, puts up 2 touchdowns on that kind of weak Panthers secondary, and Kamara will rush in a touchdown for the Panthers. Their 1 touchdown will come from Christian McCaffrey. But nonetheless, I think the Saints win this game, and the final score will be 24-13. And for our next game, it is going to be the 1-0 Los Angeles Rams playing at the 0-1 Indianapolis Colts. Now, I was wrong. I will say this right now. I was wrong about Carson Wentz. I didn't think he was going to be ready for week 1 just yet, but he did end up being ready, and he did play, and he didn't play bad at all. Played a pretty solid game. They did not win, of course, but still did his thing for sure. Now, talking injury-wise, the Colts will be without their cornerback, Xavier Rhodes, who is out with a calf injury, and I think this means a lot more than most of you will be thinking because, of course, we know how much the Rams like to pass the ball, and between Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, they're pretty damn good at it. So I think that alone is going to cause some problems. And I think that the Rams are going to be able to win this game. I think overall they're just a better team. I think between Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, there's really not much more you have to say. I could go on listing more guys on this Rams defense, but that's about all I have to say. Those are going to be the big difference makers. I think the Colts are going to struggle offensively. And I think on defense they'll be able to hold their own, but they won't be able to be getting stops and shutting down this Rams offense, if you will. So I think for this game, the Rams are going to take this one. For the Colts, at least stats-wise, I think Carson Wentz will throw for a good amount of yards. Don't think he grabs a touchdown. And I think Jonathan Taylor will rush for the only touchdown for the Colts. And for the Rams, I think Matt Stafford will throw for 2 touchdowns. Darrell Henderson rushes in 1. And this final score is going to be 24-10. For our next game, it is going to be a AFC East divisional matchup between the 0-1 Buffalo Bills heading to Miami to play the 1-0 Dolphins. And who would have thought that the Dolphins would be coming in at 1-0 and the Bills would be coming in at 0-1? I'm not here to say that the Dolphins, I was 100% sure that they were going to lose this game, because I wasn't. But the big thing I'm talking about is the Bills. I was so confident that they were going to beat the Steelers, but we already spoke about that. So let's get into this game. No major injuries for this one, and you could call me crazy, which most of you won't because you'll probably agree with this, but I think that Bills loss was a fluke. I truly believe that. I don't know what was going on with that offense. Allen just looked off the mark. Singletary really didn't do too much. Even Diggs didn't touch the ball much. I mean, Allen was throwing the ball to Emmanuel Sanders more than any other receiver on that team for the most part. That just doesn't sound like the Bills. I think the Bills, similar to a game we spoke about earlier, will be coming out with a vengeance and looking to get revenge. And I think the Dolphins, unfortunately, are going to have to deal with the consequences of that. So I think Josh Allen comes out on fire. And I'm going to tell you this too with the Dolphins. Obviously, they've looked good. They looked good week 1 on the offense, but I think this Bills defense is going to be very, very solid. Obviously, you got Ed Oliver at D-tackle. You got Tre'Davious White at cornerback. And we could talk so much about that secondary. You got Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer back there at safety. It's just not an easy team to score on. They have solid talent at all levels, and it's not going to be easy to score on them. And I think the Dolphins will struggle. I absolutely think they will struggle. They have a good amount of talent on their offense, but I'm just not a believer in Tua. I'm sorry to anyone who sees this if you're a Dolphins fan or you're a Tua believer, but I'm not on it just yet. I don't believe in Tua. He played decent enough to beat the New England in week 1, but I don't see him beating Buffalo this week. So for the Dolphins, I think their 1 touchdown will come from Myles Gaskin, and that will be the only touchdown of the game. And I know what you're thinking, wow, a lot of games with only 1 touchdown for teams. These guys are playing teams with solid defenses, and I just don't see them coming up with as many points as some of you may think they will. So I think the only touchdown for Miami comes from Myles Gaskin. I think Buffalo comes out on fire. Josh Allen throws 2 touchdowns. Singletary rushes in 1, as well as catching one of those 2 Allen touchdowns. And the Bills win this one 27-16. And we are going with back-to-back AFC East divisional matchups. As you guys can see on your screen, the other 2 AFC East teams will be matching up in our next game. It is the 0-1 Patriots going up against the 0-1 Jets. And obviously one of these teams is going to get their first win here, and I don't see it being the Jets. I could sit here and just tell you it's the New York Jets and leave you at that, and you probably wouldn't even question me on this game, but you guys know me. I'm going to give you some information. So starting off with the Patriots, they do have a couple of big injuries. Obviously, Gilmore will not be playing. He has an Achilles injury, and Kyle Van Noy will be out as well. But I don't think this changes the game too much. I really don't. This Patriots team is just too damn good on both sides of the ball. Mac Jones looked really, really solid against Miami. Not what I expected, but good enough to where I think it's enough to beat the Jets. I'll leave it at that. Now, the Jets, they did get beat by Carolina, as we spoke about earlier, but I did see some potential in Zach Wilson and that offense towards the end of the game. So I'm expecting them to put up a little bit more points than we've seen in last week's game. So I think for this one, for the Jets, Zach Wilson will throw a passing touchdown in this game. Once again, I know, repetitive, that will be the only touchdown for the Jets. But for the Patriots, on the other hand, I think Mac Jones goes for 2 touchdowns, and it is more than enough for them to win this game. And I think the final score will be 20-10 in the Patriots' favor. And for our next matchup, it is going to be the 1-0 Bengals heading to Soldier Field to match up with those 0-1 Chicago Bears. Now, this is a game that I have a lot of mixed opinions about. Now, the Bengals obviously came up with a tough win against the Vikings, which I did not see happening at all. I thought that front seven was going to be a little too powerful. The Bengals obviously missed out on drafting a solid lineman. I thought they were going to eat them alive, but they didn't. The Bengals took the game to overtime and actually ended up winning the game. And for the Bears, they obviously took a tough loss in week 1, which is unfortunate, but I think they bounced back this week. Played a tough matchup against the Rams. Really didn't see a way that they were going to win that game, but David Montgomery did look pretty solid, showed some good potential. I think he is going to show up once again on Sunday against Cincinnati. And yeah, I really don't know how the Bears don't win this game. I really don't. So let's talk some stats here. For the Bears, injury-wise, we'll talk some injuries before stats. They have a couple of guys questionable. Darnell Mooney, Roquan Smith, Jason Peters. All those guys should be fine. They all should be playing, no problem at all. And unless something out of this world happens, I expect Justin Fields to get his first official NFL start in this game. Now, obviously, because it is only Thursday, we don't know just yet if that is going to happen. But I do expect that to happen. I do expect Justin Fields to get his first official start. And yeah, so Justin Fields will be getting the start here, and I think he's going to show out for sure. The Bengals don't have the greatest defense in the world. They're going to be without Trey Waynes, their cornerback, who is out for, we don't even know what the reasoning is right now. I'm sure we'll find out more closer to Sunday. But nonetheless, I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready for this game. I'm ready to see Justin Fields. I'm ready to see what he has. I'm going to tell you how well he's going to play right now. I think he only comes up with 1 touchdown this game. Only 1 touchdown. 1 passing touchdown is going to be it. That's all he's going to get. But nonetheless, I think it would still be solid if he won his first career start. And that's what it's looking like. I think David Montgomery rushes for a touchdown. And for the Bengals, I think that Joe Mixon will rush him for a touchdown once again. Only touchdown for the Bengals comes from Joe Mixon. And the final score for this one is going to be 23-7. And for our next game, it is going to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers matching up against the Atlanta Falcons. There's going to be an NFC South divisional matchup. Obviously, the Bucs playing the first game of the 2021-2022 regular season. They played against the Cowboys. It was a very close, high-scoring game, and the Bucs were able to come out on top with a field goal towards the end of regulation, and the Falcons lost to my Philadelphia Eagles, which I actually got them one right. Go back and look at last week's episode. That was my upset pick of the week, and it paid off. Big win for you, boy. But nonetheless, I think Atlanta's struggles will continue this week. They are still a solid team. We understand that. But as we said, the same thing last week, losing their 2 playmakers in Julio Jones and Todd Gurley, who once again didn't have the greatest season last year, I know. But he's still a good running back. He's still a good running back. So for Matt Ryan losing those 2, he'll still have Hayden Hurst. He'll still have Calvin Ridley. And he'll still have Mike Davis, who was pretty solid last week at the running back position. Not for nothing, but it won't be enough to beat Tampa Bay. We know how stacked this team is on both sides of the ball, and I think they'll have no problem. Still early season, and they're just going to keep on rolling and move to 2-0. That's about all that needs to be said. No major injuries here. So first, some stats for the Falcons. I think Mike Davis rushes in a touchdown in this game, and Matt Ryan throws for a touchdown. So getting 14 points on the board here. We're losing to just 1 touchdown for the losing team trend in this game right here. And for the Bucs, I think Tom Brady, 2 touchdowns on the board. Leonard Fournette rushing for 1, and the final score is going to be 30-23. And for our next game, it is going to be the 0-1 Minnesota Vikings heading to Arizona to play the 1-0 Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals came up with a dominant win over Tennessee. Kyler Murray leading the way with 5 touchdowns, unreal performance, and the Vikings lost a game that I really thought for sure that they were going to win against the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this is a game that I thought was going to be pretty close until I checked out the injury report. Everson Griffin ruled out with a concussion, as well as Anthony Barr ruled out with a knee injury. And Eric Kendricks, I believe, is going to be playing through a quad injury in this game. So this went from a game where you're going to have a high-powered offense against a pretty solid defense in Minnesota to Minnesota having a ton of these guys either ruled out or playing through injury. And I see no reason why the Cardinals do not take absolute full advantage of this. I really don't. I think they're going to take full advantage, and I think they're going to abuse Minnesota on Sunday. Now, let's talk some stats. Obviously, we spoke about all the injuries. Arizona with not too many injuries. Minnesota, we already spoke about. So let's get into these stats. Now, for Minnesota, I don't think they will go down without a fight. I still think, despite the bad defense, the offense still stays rolling. Kirk Cousins scores a touchdown passing. Dalvin Cook rushes in for 1. So they put up 2 touchdowns, but I don't think it will match up with Arizona. I think Kyler Murray goes for 2 touchdowns in this game. Chase Edmonds, who's been the leading rusher through week 1, rushes in a touchdown as well. And the final score for this one is going to be 27-20. And for our next game, it is going to be the 1-0 Seattle Seahawks going up against the 0-1 Tennessee Titans. Now, let's talk about these teams' previous games. The Seahawks, of course, won in dominant fashion against the Colts. Really didn't have any problems there. And the Titans truly, I hate to use the term, but they wet the bed against the Arizona Cardinals. Just a disappointing performance. Derrick Henry, a little under 70 yards rushing. It was just disappointing. And I think the Titans will come out in this game with a better game plan and all-around better play, especially around Derrick Henry. But will it be enough to beat Seattle? Let's talk about it right now. My answer is no. My answer is no, and I'm going to tell you why. I think the Seahawks defense is very solid. I know the only big names, if you really want to talk, are Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, but I think the depth on the Seattle defense is pretty damn solid. I think the Titans are still going to put up a good amount of points. I think it's still going to be a close game, but I think the thing that's going to let the Titans fall to 0-2 is going to be their defense in this one. So I think for Tennessee, they come out hot with their offense this week. Obviously had a tough game last year. I think they bounced back offensively. And I think Ryan Tannehill throws for a touchdown. Derrick Henry rushes for 2 touchdowns. Before Seattle, I think that Russell Wilson throws for 2 touchdowns. Chris Carson rushes in 1. And the final score ends in a close game. Final score 27-24. And Seattle takes this one and stays undefeated. And for our next game, it is going to be the 0-1 Dallas Cowboys and the 1-0 Los Angeles Chargers. Now, the Cowboys played a very tight game against the Buccaneers, and if it wasn't for that defense giving up in the last minute and a half, not necessarily giving up, but, you know, not being able to shut down the Bucs offense, they probably could have won the game. They still put up 25+ points. It was a great performance for them, and the Chargers, of course, beat out the Washington football team in week 1. Obviously, Washington put up a good fight the second Fitzpatrick went down, but the Chargers were able to hold out and win. So let's talk about this game. Now, the big thing is going to be the Cowboys injury-wise. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of these right now. DeMarcus Lawrence is on IR, will be missing at least the next 3 to 5 weeks. Same thing with Michael Gallup, who is also on IR. So big losses for the Cowboys, more primarily on defense than they are on offense. But this obviously evens this game out a lot more than it would have been normally. I think without those injuries that the Cowboys win this one pretty easily. But a big loss to their D-line, which is going to hurt their QB pressure. And they lose their second-best wide receiver, which will obviously hurt the offense somewhat. But I still think, despite these 2 injuries, that the Cowboys come out and win this game. And this is one of the closest games that I had to call for this week. This is a game that I could really see going either way. But I got to give it to the Cowboys, man. I really do. I loved what I seen last week on both sides of the ball. Dak Prescott looks like he's not rusty at all. He does not look rusty at all. Had a phenomenal performance. And I can't doubt him until I see him struggle. The Chargers played a great game last week. They got some solid talent, but I think Dallas is just on another level, especially on defense, especially when you look at the linebacking core. Oh, my goodness. Micah Parsons, Jalen Smith, and Leighton Vander Esch all on that field most of the time at the same time. It's so tough to run on those guys. They all have great play awareness. They all have great tackling. And then when you're playing coverage, they're all good enough to guard some wide receivers and almost all the running backs. So the Chargers obviously have Austin Eckler, good receiving back. They have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, lost Hunter Henry, but that won't hinder them too much as we've seen last week. But I think the Cowboys end up taking this one. So we're going to talk some stats a little bit for the Chargers. I think that Justin Herbert will throw for a touchdown. He'll have a solid game, only one touchdown though. And Austin Eckler will rush for one as well. But I think for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott throws for 2 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott rushes in 1. And our final score for this one is going to be 24-13. And we are down to our final 2 games, starting off with our Sunday Night Football matchup. It is going to be the 1-0 Kansas City Chiefs heading to Baltimore, Maryland to play the 0-1 Ravens. And this is obviously a battle of the QBs of the future between Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson, 2 super exciting, super great players. And it's another great battle, man. But unfortunately, I don't think this one is going to be as close as a lot of people think. As good as the Ravens are, they just lost on Monday night to a Raiders team, and that really affects my confidence in the Ravens. If not for that game, if they beat the Raiders, it didn't even have to be in dominant fashion. And even in a somewhat close game, I'd give you a solid game here. But after that, I'm really struggling to believe in the Ravens. Now, I know the running back situation. They have Le'Veon Bell now who's going to be able to play in week 2, but I don't even believe in Le'Veon Bell that much. I really don't. I don't think he's ever been the same since he left Pittsburgh. I don't think he will ever get back there. That's just my opinion. You could disagree, but that's how I feel. I think the Chiefs win this one with ease. With ease. I think the Ravens will be solid, but I think their defense is not going to hold up. The Chiefs defense won't play too well either, but they'll do enough to win this game. So let's talk some stats for the Ravens. I think Lamar Jackson throws for a touchdown. Le'Veon Bell, although I think he's not going to be that good, he will get in a rushing touchdown. But for the Chiefs, oh my goodness, what they do to this team. Patrick Mahomes, 3 touchdowns. I'm calling it right now. You can call me crazy, 3 touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes. Clyde Edwards-Helaire rushes in 1, and I think the final score for this game is going to be 34-16. And for our final game of week 2, now I just want to say before we get into this game, I know I told you guys I'm going to be trying to get some guests on here to keep this thing more fresh. I'm still working on it right now. I know you guys really want to see some other guests. You don't just want to hear me talk. I promise you guys I am working on it. I'm going to do everything in my power to have one for week 3. But nonetheless, let's get into this final game. 2 teams that lost their first game of the season. The Lions obviously lost a close game to the Niners, where they gave them quite the fight at the end of the game. They had a pretty solid comeback, but still ended up losing that game. And the Packers had an abysmal performance against the New Orleans Saints. I know a lot of people think that Aaron Rodgers is losing on purpose to get out. I don't believe that. I think it was just a fluke game. I don't see Aaron Rodgers playing that bad. Even if he wants out of Green Bay, I don't see him purposely losing, because imagine how much that's going to tarnish his legacy. Even if he is one of the most accurate players of all time, even if he has a Super Bowl to his name, even if he has an MVP to his name, obviously having a crappy season is going to be something that people are never going to forget. I don't believe that he's losing on purpose. This, that, and the third. I don't see it. So no major injuries for this game, and I think the Packers are going to win this one. No question. The Lions, they put up a solid fight last week. Another team, obviously the Niners do have a good defense, but I just don't really understand how they gave up 33 points to the Lions. I really don't. I don't see the same thing for the Packers. I think they'll play pretty solid, win this game with ease. Let's just get into some stats because there's really not too much to say here. I think for the Lions, Jared Goff throws for a touchdown. DeAndre Swift rushes in 1. And for the Packers, Aaron Rodgers comes out, throws 2 touchdowns. Aaron Jones rushes in 1. And your final score for this final game is going to be 27-16. And that is going to do it for my week 2 predictions. Let me know if there's any games you think I got wrong and how you think those games are going to go. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the video. And I will see you guys in week 3. And I'm out. Peace.